Hello, this is Dr. Anthony Delmond. We've been discussing 5 key elements for relationships and building relationship with customers, and then we talked about the golden rule. Now we want to move on and start talking about marketing management orientations. Marketing management orientations are very important. They're broad classes of industry or company-wide sales philosophies and their accompanying marketing activities. We're going to discuss how these have developed alongside the evolution of sales, and we'll also consider how they correspond with the product life cycle. In this lecture, we're going to talk about 5 marketing management orientations: production, product, don't get those two confused, production and product are different, selling or sales, marketing, and societal marketing. Though all of these orientations exist today, this graphic indicates which was predominant as the orientation in the marketplace at a given time. We can see that throughout the evolution of marketing, we've been moving away from the inward focus on the business itself and toward a focus on customers and customer enrichment. I should take a moment here to address a few additional definitions. A business or company in this course is going to be how we refer to the manufacturer or producer of a range of products. For example, Bayer is a company selling a broad range of seeds, and John Deere is a company selling tractors. Obviously, both of these companies sell and produce other things, but we're going to focus on those for our purposes here. A firm is the individual entity producing or selling the product. There's a lot of overlap between businesses and firms, but here's an example to illustrate the difference. We have many businesses that sell John Deere tractors. Tennessee Tractor is one of these. That company has multiple locations. For example, Dyersburg, Alamo, and Jackson, just to name a few of them. Each of those locations is a firm. For our purposes, we might think of this as the difference between a company and a factory or a plant that builds that company's products. So it's a distinct entity that may have its own processes for selling a product. We could think of this in terms of franchising as well. McDonald's is a very large company, but each individual franchise operation is a firm. Let's start out with the first two, the product and production orientations. The production orientation focuses on production only. It's a sort of build it and they will come approach to marketing. When you think of an assembly line churning out an endless stream of identical products, that's the production orientation. There's no focus on product quality, costs, the customer, or anything other than how much of an undifferentiated product can be produced. Henry Ford famously said that he was willing to make any color car for people as long as the color they wanted was black. That illustrates a focus only on quantity. This orientation dominated the marketplace for millennia. When there aren't many things to choose from, people will take what they can get. Scarcity is one of the great assets in business, but it doesn't last. The product orientation, that's a little more nuanced. It was developed in the early to mid 20th century. As more and more companies started competing over customers for the same products, businesses decided to start slightly modifying the products themselves. They started to make products better, competing over quality instead of just trying to produce as many as they could. They also started thinking about how to reduce costs so they could pass the savings on to the customer, hence also competing over price. It's important to note, though, that both of these focused on the behavior and efforts of only the producer and the production process, not customers. Particularly for companies moving from the production to the product orientation, product differentiation becomes important. This is the process where companies take action to distinguish their products from the competition. It can be done by offering additional options, like different colors, by extending out product lines, like adding a bunch of new models with varying built-in features, increasing quality, or anything else that makes the product itself stand apart from the competition. When we talk about the last two marketing management orientations, we can see that companies actually begin to distinguish themselves from the competition rather than the product just by the product they create. But before that, we still need to address customer-facing sales orientation. And we can see here, you extend out product lines. You can change colors, maybe change features of the automobile to give customers some options. The sales orientation began a shift in marketing toward the customer. So this is the first one we see that is customer-facing. Instead of focusing only on the product itself, The era of the sales orientation gave us door-to-door sales, the door-to-door salesperson, and that brought the product directly to the customer's door. In the early stages of sales orientation, this was a really ugly process. There wasn't a set of guidelines. No one knew what they were doing. One person might have a beautiful scripted sales pitch, while the next might just carry a bag of cleaning supplies to a customer's door and ask if they want some. As we discussed earlier, market forces weeded out the unsuccessful strategies, and we started to see a dominant style emerge. The marketing orientation attempts to satisfy customers' needs. The product itself, sales, and costs are all secondary to the needs of the customer under the marketing orientation. This might be deemed a move toward a sales philosophy of the customer is always right, since a marketing-oriented company or salesperson never wants to leave the buyer's needs unfulfilled. For marketing-oriented companies, identifying the correct target market is crucial. The target market is the audience for which the product is best suited. So for expensive farm equipment, this might be larger farms. For agricultural microloans, it might be entrepreneurial individuals or hobbyists. Over the last 20 plus years, we've seen a move toward societal marketing. This concept is based on making broader improvements for society. So with a sales orientation, we saw a drive toward making the customer buy. With the marketing orientation, we saw a push toward making the individual customers happy. And with this societal marketing orientation, we see firms pushing to make the larger customer base happy. So it's an aggregate philosophy. It's about providing for that aggregate so that the individual is protected regardless of their purchase. Corporate social responsibility, or CSR, is the term used for this in business circles. We can think about examples of this where businesses decide to operate using only renewable energy sources, sourcing only humanitarian or environmentally responsible product inputs, or offering options to donate a portion of product proceeds to charity. These give the customer a warm glow feeling without actually providing product-based benefit specifically. We saw this in terms of Starbucks years ago, either during Arbor Day or Earth Day, I can't remember. They offered to plant a tree for every regular cup of coffee that was sold. We see commercials doing the same sort of thing, trying to get people to recognize that there are issues and indicating that the company is going to help solve these global issues like climate change and the like. We can also see pretty easily that the evolution of marketing orientations mirrors, or marketing management orientations rather, mirrors the product life cycle. For new and innovative products, people will go purchase them without much coaxing. Businesses can follow a production orientation because there may be enough early buyers to sustain growth depending on the desirability and availability of the product. Once competitors start to enter the market, it becomes necessary to focus on improving the product and the company's offerings so that they can compete. This product differentiation could come in terms of product features, increasing quality, or a multitude of other options. This focus on product quality obviously follows a product orientation. Once the competition starts to repeat that same differentiation process or copying those differentiation strategies, the salespeople are going to have to work a little harder to find buyers, perhaps adopting a sales orientation. Once the market starts becoming more and more saturated, it becomes necessary to focus on the experience of the buyer. Now firms start to sell the pleasant service associated with the purchasing process instead of just the product itself, and that follows a marketing orientation. And with a saturated or declining market, we observe a shift in businesses' behavior. They recognize an untapped resource, people's desire to contribute to a worthy cause. They want people to purchase the product because those customers believe in the company and want to contribute to its mission. Once we reach a societal marketing orientation, the product is riding tandem with the company itself. People may want to buy a product just because they want to be seen as the kind of person who believes in what that company stands for in the eyes of the public. Or at least businesses hope that's the way that they see it. For a better illustration of the product life cycle, we can look at this figure. There are 4 main stages: introduction, growth, maturity, and decline. A successful product will go through all of these, eventually to be replaced by other products entirely in a process that economist Joseph Schumpeter termed creative destruction. Starting out, we see low sales, high cost per customer, and financial losses. Firms aren't competing for the market because the market doesn't really exist yet. Most products don't get out of this stage, but all the successful ones do. Once enough products reach the public and information spreads, the product may take off. This essentially means that sales start to really pick up steam. With the increased sales during this growth period, as well as the cost per customer declining on products, hence we see a big increase in profits. But other companies see that success, and they want the increase in profits too, so they decide to spend the upfront money necessary to enter the market themselves. During that growth phase, we see an increase in competitors for market share. Over time, the initial company starts to lose its market power. That means it doesn't have control to set prices all on its own. It starts to have to compete with other firms over prices. The consumer benefits through lower prices, and eventually, once the market starts becoming saturated, we'll see a slowdown in sales, and eventually a saturated market where no one else needs the product. After that point, we'll eventually observe product decline, profits will fall, less successful competitors will fold, and profits will signal the end of that product's life cycle. It doesn't mean that they go away immediately, but it means that they taper off quite precipitously. Alright, so that's a lot to chew on. I'm going to go ahead and stop, and we'll come back next time and talk about relationship marketing.